Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic. What was the hardest piece of news you've had to tell someone? Tell my dad, who was in the hospital 2 weeks away from his own death, that his father had died. Dad hadn't yet accepted that he, himself, was dying, though my sister and I could see it. Grandpa had been in hospice for 2 months, so we all knew that his end was near. In the week between Grandpa's death and his funeral, Dad began to accept that he didn't have much time left. Dad made it to Grandpa's funeral, albeit via ambulance/wheelchair, and saw his extended family for the last time. That was a surreal experience for me, watching him say goodbye. Edit, typo. That must have been heartbreaking for you. It was. I had buried my mom's mom, and Dad's mom at the rate of one funeral every 30 to 14 months for the years directly preceding Dad's death, a total of 5 funerals in less than 5 years, and been responsible for Dad's end-of-life medical care and decision-making, so I was all but numb by that time. Still hurt to watch the realize RTO hit him. And to watch the realize RTO hit everyone else that my dad wasn't going to last much longer when they saw him at the funeral again, surreal. I had to tell my mom that the bike that I reported stolen to the police was under the fucky porch. Okay, this was a nice breather after all the horrific death stories I've been reading. TBH, that would be terrifying had it been my mother Mayo. LOL. I know someone who reported his car stolen but then received a call from his mechanic telling him he could come pick it up. Oh boy, that's forgetful. Telling my sister that our dad's heart attack was indeed fatal. Same. Had to tell my 18-year-old sister that our dad had suddenly died in his sleep. That was bad. Reading this chat and things like this is like a painful and grim reminder of how the world works. Nevertheless, sorry for your loss. After my wife woke up from a medically induced coma, I had to tell her our son died. The look of soul-shattering pain still bothers me. Oh God. I hope you both are okay now. We are. Thanks for the concern. I just can't. That must have been the lowest moment imaginable. I hope you find some joy and happiness now and in the future. After my parents split up, my dad moved us in with his mother. She was one of those grandmas who woke up every morning to get my siblings and I up for school because my dad left for work at 4 a.m. and worked 12-hour days usually. One day she didn't wake us up. Just as was coming out of my room, I saw my younger, 4YRS, I was 17, coming out of her room. We just kind of looked at each other and had a no shit moment. I went in to check on Grandma. She was cold. So I called 911 and then had to call Dad. That was hard. And because he worked about 30 minutes away, this was the IT, so cell phones weren't that common yet, I had to call all the aunts and uncles too. And then dig out Grandma's DNR from where Dad told me it was and hand it to the EMTs that showed up. So it was definitely the 7 worst calls of my life so far. Edit, thank you all for the messages of sympathy/condolence, I really appreciate it. For all other replies/comments, I'm trying to reply to them as I can. I'm at work right now. When I was probably 12 to 30, I was driving with my dad in town and we decided to stop in on my 70Y/O grandmother who lived alone at about 3 in the afternoon on a Sunday just to check up on her. We ring the doorbell several times. Nothing. We knock on the door. We knock harder. Nothing. So Dad uses his spare key to let us in. We get inside and it is all dark and quiet. We give this look to each other that says, well, fuck, we're about to find Grandma dead somewhere in here. We go room by room, and finally we get to her bedroom. You can hear her noise machine and humidifier running behind the door. We slowly open up her bedroom door. She jumps up out of bed and yells, "Oh my God, you scared me. I was just really tired today, so I thought I'd go to bed a little bit early." One morning my dad and I went to surprise my 93-year-old great-grandmother at her home, where she lives alone. We ring the doorbell, no response. Knock on the side door, no response. Knock on the front door, no response. Check through the front window, and we see her slumped over on her couch. We tried calling her phone, yelling for her, nothing gets her attention. We're certain she's dead and we can't get to her. Then her neighbor comes out and says that the 2 of them had just gone for a walk and she must be napping, so she unlocks the door and Grandma wakes up. She had taken her hearing aid out and passed out on the couch. That was quite the relief. I'm glad he could tell you where the DNR was. I need to get copies of my parents-in-law's just in case. Paramedic here. Copies do not work. You need the original copy signed by both the doctor and your loved one or your loved one's durable power of attorney. I've run into scenarios where I was given a copy, a out-of-date copy, a form not signed, or even just a family member telling us they are a DNR with no proof. Edit, inbox is blowing up. I understand states are different. To be perfectly clear and to do what's best for yourself and for loved one, you want to have the original copy on hand signed by yourself or your durable power of attorney as well as your primary care physician, and make sure it's up to date. This will save time and confusion. If you're unsure, contact your state Department of Health and find out your local rules regarding a DNR almost form. If a DNR and almost form is not on hand and the paramedics/EMTs are on scene, they have no choice but to perform life-saving measures unless you or your loved one is obviously dead with incompatible signs of life. I had to tell my spouse and children that my 26-year-old took his own life. I'm so sorry. What a horrible loss. Please be kind to yourself. I am so truly sorry. I have a 22-year-old son with depression who I worry about every day. Sometimes we won't leave him for fear of him being alone. I am sending you love and peace. Mom and her 4-year-old daughter were in a house fire. Mom had third-degree burns over 60% of her body. She was put in a medically induced coma. After extubating the mom a few days later, my roommate, a surgery resident, had to tell her that her daughter was brain dead. Tell my dad who had dementia my mother passed away from cancer. I'm extremely sorry for your loss. Thank you. My mom died in 2013. Dad also died last year. This is so painfully familiar. My dad kept forgetting, and if I'm 100% honest, I stopped telling him after a while. When he asked where she was or when she was coming home, I would just say that she would be coming home later and tell him not to worry. I tried to be honest initially, but this was much kinder, I think. But when will she? You will wonder. And I'll tell you and you'll weep. And your cries will take you under. As you're drifting off to sleep. I could say it when you've woken. I could speak the words and then. When you've heard them softly spoken. I could break your heart again. I could find a way to say it. So that maybe they would stay. But you'll ask me to convey it. Just the same tomorrow day. So I know what I will tell you. When you wake this afternoon. It's the kindest lie to sell you. I will answer, maybe soon. Therapeutic fibbing is what we called it in the memory care ward I worked in. They are never going to form that new long-term memory about their spouse being dead. Why spend half an hour every day upsetting them about it? Telling someone's family that we are giving up on searching for their loved ones who are lost at sea. I've been a person that received that news, and I could only imagine how hard it must have been for the Coast Guard to decide that. They made an incredible effort, in stormy weather. We didn't find out until later that my friends had been shot and thrown overboard. There was no chance for survival and nothing other than their boat was ever recovered. I always wanted to send a thank you letter to the Coast Guard, but 12 years later I still can't get past the first 2 lines. I joined search and rescue as a way to try and pay that back, but it proved to be more than I wanted to handle emotionally. So, thank you for trying so hard to find our loved ones. We didn't find out until later that my friends had been shot and thrown overboard. If you don't mind me asking, what's the story on that? Was it pirates/smugglers or something? I come from a fishing community, so I know what that looks like on the family side. Thank you for what you do. We know it's just as hard on y'all. I come from Guernsey. We had that plane go down with the French footballer on board, and all we could see on Facebook was people moaning about the search being called off. The plane went down in January, at night, in the ocean. Why keep risking lives to look for corpses? Our search teams did what they could. Edit, Argentinian footballer, not French. When I was 22, my parents asked me to come home and watch my grandma, who had dementia and needed a caregiver, while they went to visit my brother who was living out of the country. 2 days in, my grandma died in her sleep. Not only did I have to deal with being the person who found my grandma dead by myself, but I then had to call all of my various family members, parents, aunts, brothers, to let them know what happened. Sorry it came down to you to bear the bad news. I hope you enjoyed each other's company in her final days. She definitely had no idea who I was, but I think she knew she was with someone who loved her, and honestly, that's the best I could hope for in that situation. I had to tell my wife that our 8-year-old son had died in the night. He was on hospice and it was expected, but that was still hard. Then I had to phone my older children and tell them. Thursday will mark 2 years. Professionally, I had to tell the parents of a 20-year-old basketball star that his drug use did not account for his unusual thoughts and behaviors, that he was, in fact, psychotic and likely schizophrenic. I can't even fathom such a thing. I choke up when the invasive thoughts come in of what kinds of awful things could happen to my own son, and it terrifies me. I commend any parent that still finds a way to keep going after losing a child. I hope you've been able to see some brighter days after all that darkness.